These aren't made-up stories. Every single one of these horrors really happened, and some still remain unsolved. What you're about to hear will make you question what's real, and what's lurking just beyond sight. Before this video starts, I want you to know one thing. These are not made-up horror stories. No creepypasta. No fake imagination. Every story you're about to hear is based on real people, real places, and real events that actually happened. I didn't choose these stories to scare you with cheap tricks. I chose them because while reading them, I felt uncomfortable, disturbed, and silent for a long time. Some moments made me stop and think, this really happened. If you're watching this alone, with headphones on, I suggest you don't skip a single second. These stories don't rush. They slowly get under your skin, and stay there. 1. The Elisa Lam Case, Cecil Hotel Death. I still remember the first time I watched the elevator footage from the Cecil Hotel. It was late at night, lights off, phone screen glowing in my hands. At first, it didn't look like a horror story at all. It looked like a young girl, alone, confused, and scared in a place where no one was supposed to be watching her. Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old college student from Canada. In January 2013, she was traveling alone in Los Angeles and staying at the Cecil Hotel, a building already known for its dark history. When I read that, I didn't think much of it. But everything changed the moment she disappeared. No goodbye message. No luggage taken. Just gone. Days later, the hotel released CCTV footage from the elevator. I replayed it again and again, trying to understand what she was seeing. Elisa presses multiple buttons, steps in and out, hides in the corner, and makes strange hand movements in the hallway. The elevator doors refused to close. Watching her body language, I felt a deep unease. She didn't look playful. She looked terrified, like someone was standing just outside the camera's view. Then came the part that still makes my stomach sink. Hotel guests began complaining about low water pressure and strange taste in their taps. Maintenance workers were sent to the roof to check the water tanks. When they opened one of them, they found Elisa Lam's body floating inside. I paused when I read that. I imagined the cold metal ladder, the heavy tank lid, and the silence on that rooftop. The police said there were no signs of forced entry. The tank lid was found open. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder listed as a contributing factor. But the questions never stopped. How did she reach the roof, which was supposed to be locked? How did she climb into a tank that was over 8 feet tall? Why were her clothes found floating separately? And most disturbing of all, why did the elevator behave so strangely that night? I'm not claiming anything supernatural happened. I'm only saying that when you connect the facts, watch the footage, and read the reports, something feels deeply wrong. Elisa Lam's case is real, documented, and officially closed. But the fear it leaves behind is also real. Even now, when I think about that elevator camera quietly recording her final moments, it feels like the building itself was watching her disappear. 2. The Villisca Axe Murder House, 1912. I remember standing in front of the white wooden house in Villisca, Iowa, and thinking how normal it looked. Quiet street, trimmed grass, nothing that warned you about what happened inside. But the air felt heavy, like the house was holding its breath. This was the place where, in 1912, 8 people were murdered in their sleep, and no one was ever held responsible. The Moore family lived here. Josiah Moore, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children. That night, 2 young girls who were friends of the family were also staying over. After attending a church event, everyone went to bed. Nothing unusual was reported. No screams were heard. By morning, the house was silent. When the bodies were discovered, the scene shocked even experienced investigators. Every victim had been killed with an axe, believed to belong to Josiah Moore himself. What disturbed me most when I read the reports was how carefully the killer moved. Each person was struck while sleeping. one by one. No sign of panic until it was too late. As I walked through the house years later, I noticed how small the rooms were. The beds were close together. I kept thinking about how the killer stood there in the dark, raising and lowering the axe repeatedly. Even stranger, all the mirrors in the house had been covered with cloth, and a slab of bacon was found wrapped in a towel near the scene. No one could explain why. The investigation went nowhere. Several suspects were questioned, including a traveling preacher and a local businessman, but there was never enough evidence. The case slowly went cold. What stayed alive were the unanswered questions. Why this family? Why no theft? And how did the killer leave without being seen? Standing in the children's room, I felt an uncomfortable silence. People say they hear footsteps here, children's voices, and the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor at night. I can't prove any of that. What I can say is that the history alone is enough to make your skin crawl. This is not a legend or a campfire story. This happened. Police reports, newspaper articles, and court records all confirm it. 8 people went to sleep in this house and never woke up. Over 100 years later, the axe murders of Villisca remain unsolved. When I stepped outside and looked back at the house one last time, I realized the most frightening part isn't the ghost stories. It's the fact that someone did this, walked away, and was never caught. 3. The Amityville horror case. I still remember the moment I stood outside 112, Ocean Avenue. The house looked calm, almost welcoming, with its large windows staring back like quiet eyes. It was hard to believe that this place was tied to one of the most disturbing real crime scenes in American history. The silence around the house felt too clean, like something bad had been carefully covered up. Before people ever talked about hauntings here, something very real happened. In November 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered 6 members of his own family while they slept inside this house. Parents, brothers, sisters, all shot in their beds. Police reports confirmed it. DeFeo confessed. There was no mystery about the crime itself, only about how no one woke up during the killings. A year later, the Lutz family moved in. George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children lasted only 28 days in the house. I walked through the rooms slowly, thinking about that short time. According to their statements, strange things began almost immediately. Cold spots. Doors slamming. Waking up at exactly 3:15 every night, the same time the DeFeo murders happened. These claims were written down, recorded, and later shared publicly. Standing in the living room, I tried to imagine what fear does to a person over time. The Lutz family said they felt watched. Kathy described seeing marks on her body. George talked about a constant anger growing inside him. No police report ever confirmed paranormal activity, but their testimonies were real, and they never changed their story. The basement disturbed me the most. It was small and dark, with a smell that felt old and heavy. The Lutz family claimed it was a place of intense fear. I can't say anything supernatural happened there. What I can say is that knowing 6 people were murdered in the same house makes your thoughts turn dark without any help. Years later, investigators, journalists, and courts argued about the truth. Some called it a hoax. Others believed the family truly experienced something they couldn't explain. Books were written. Movies were made. But the murders remained a fact that no one could deny. When I stepped outside again, the house looked normal once more. Kids played down the street. Cars passed by. Life went on. But the reality stayed with me. Whether you believe in hauntings or not, the Amityville case is rooted in a real tragedy. 6 people were killed here, and another family fled in fear. Sometimes, the scariest part isn't ghosts. It's what real humans are capable of, and the memories they leave behind in places like this. For the Black Dahlia murder, Elizabeth Short. I was standing near the empty lot in Los Angeles where Elizabeth Short was found, and the noise of the city felt strangely distant. Cars passed, people walked by, but my mind kept pulling me back to January 1947. It didn't feel like a place where something so terrible could happen, and maybe that's what made it worse. Elizabeth Short was only 22 years old. She came to Los Angeles with dreams, like so many others. She was known for her black hair, her quiet smile, and the nickname that newspapers later gave her, the Black Dahlia. When I read about her life, it didn't sound dramatic. It sounded lonely. She moved from place to place, staying with friends, trying to survive in a city that didn't care. On the morning of January 15th, a woman walking her child noticed something in the grass. At first, she thought it was a mannequin. That detail stayed with me because it shows how unreal the scene looked. But it wasn't a mannequin. It was Elizabeth. The police reports described a crime so disturbing that it shocked the entire country. The case became front-page news overnight. As I stood there, I thought about how fast her name traveled through the city, and how little anyone actually knew about her. The investigation was massive. Hundreds of suspects were questioned. Tips poured in from all over the country. Letters were sent to newspapers by someone claiming to be the killer. Some included personal items belonging to Elizabeth. Those letters were real. The fear they created was real too. Despite all of this, no one was ever charged. The case slowly went cold. Over the years, writers and investigators pointed fingers at doctors, artists, and powerful men. Some theories sounded convincing. Others fell apart under facts. None of them were proven. What bothered me most was how Elizabeth herself was slowly lost in the noise. People focused on the mystery, not the person. Standing there, I tried to imagine her last walk, her last thoughts, and whether she believed someone would help her. There are no answers to that. This case is not a legend. It's not a ghost story. It is documented through police files, photographs, and court records. A young woman was murdered, and her killer was never found. Los Angeles kept growing, and the city moved on, but the Black Dahlia case never truly disappeared. When I finally turned away from the empty lot, I felt a heavy calm. The kind that comes when you realize some truths will never be uncovered. The horror here isn't supernatural. It's real, human, and unresolved, which somehow makes it even harder to forget. 5. The Bell Witch Case. I remember the drive into Adams, Tennessee being quiet and slow, like the town itself didn't want to be rushed. The fields were open, the roads narrow, and there was a strange calm in the air. This was the place where the Bell family lived in the early 1800s, and where one of the most documented haunting cases in American history began. The story starts with John Bell and his family, simple farmers living a normal life. According to written records and family accounts, strange things began around 1817. At first, it was small. Knocking sounds at night. Scratching on the walls. I tried to imagine lying in that wooden house, listening to noises that didn't belong to the wind or animals. The kind of sounds that make you hold your breath and wait. Over time, the activity became impossible to ignore. The Bell children reported being pinched and slapped by something they couldn't see. The voice came next. A clear voice, sometimes whispering, sometimes shouting, calling itself a spirit. Standing near the old property, I felt uncomfortable thinking about how real that must have sounded in a time with no electricity, no explanations, and no escape. What makes this case different is the number of witnesses. Neighbors, visitors, and even respected figures of the time reported hearing the voice. One of them was General Andrew Jackson, who later became President of the United States. According to multiple accounts, his men experienced strange events during their visit, forcing them to leave. Reading that detail always gave me chills, because it placed this story firmly in recorded history. The most disturbing part came with John Bell's death in 1820. Reports say he fell ill in a strange way. A mysterious bottle was found, and after its contents were given to a cat, the animal died instantly. The voice claimed responsibility. John Bell died soon after. His death was written about and discussed widely, even in newspapers of that time. Standing near the Bell Witch Cave, I noticed how quiet everything was. No sounds. No movement. Just a deep stillness. People say the activity never fully stopped here. I can't say I saw anything. But I can say that knowing how many written records exist makes it hard to dismiss. This isn't a modern ghost story created for attention. It's a case preserved in journals, books, and historical documents. The Bell Witch case may never be fully explained, but it remains one of the few hauntings tied closely to real people, real deaths, and real history. As I walked away, I felt a strange mix of doubt and respect. Whether you believe in spirits or not, something happened here, and it left a mark that time couldn't erase.